My name is Julie Forsythe, and I was in Vietnam from early 1973, just before the U.S. military withdrew, until late 1975, after the change of government. And as Bill said in the introduction, I was there, as I am today, as a Quaker. Having grown up in a strong tradition that really just doesn't hold with violence as being a very good solution to anything. I was a very active participant in the protest movements, and I wonder, there were two questions Bill was going to ask, and he only asked one. One was how many of you were vets. How many of you are old enough to have been involved in protests to the Vietnam War? The country was split, and as one who really believes so deeply that communication and connection is the way to move forward in community, this was a really hard time. It was not really particularly a time of dialogue. We were so divided against each other, against our generations, those who were older than we were, who just didn't see it the way we did, between us and those who followed the rules and joined the military. And I just want to say how delighted I am by this film. I was really apprehensive. Things like this always stir up so much mud, and this to me seems to be a pretty complete view. The view I was concerned about in going to Vietnam is what I kind of called the worm's eye view, which was what was it like for peasants, for children, for people who were the innocent victims. And that's what we were doing in Quang Ai. We were working in a rehab center, making arms and legs, and working with burn victims from napalm and so on and so forth. I was really taken by a number of expressions in this that said, war is just ghastly and agony, and I think that's our common ground. That's what we share with one another, no matter where we stood in all this, and really wanting to see that it just doesn't happen again. And of course, the announcements about Afghanistan right now are kind of painful and challenging. So here we are, and thank you, Ken Burns, for this, and thanks for a chance to talk about this and to really kind of stay awake to it all and not just paper it over and try and throw it away, because we can't. It's part of our lives. One of my big fears, actually, with this documentary was that there'd be no history at all. And of course, we didn't see. The first slide goes up, it says 1845 through, obviously through through Dien Bien Phu and so on and so forth. The whole colonialization and imperial conquests by the French and the British in Asia. And I don't know how much he does, but I don't really know how many episodes there are. There may be 18, but certainly the first 3, which we didn't see, are devoted to that. And I'm really interested to see what that's going to contain. I was afraid it was going to have nothing. I think your point about greed is incredibly important, but I don't think it's just greed of nations. I think it's greed of persons as well. I don't think we can forget our own individual motives as we move forward as a lens of understanding how nations move. If we look around us in our communities, who holds resources, how are they held, where is the real spirit of generosity and compassion in communities, We live in a nation now where the rich and the poor are more divided than ever. It's ridiculous. And that connects, obviously, to conditions that create wars like this. Whether or not Ken talks about that, I don't know, but I think you're right, that without a really deep historical look and understanding, we miss something important. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those first 3 episodes to see how far back it goes and what he has to say. or document. So, interesting point. Tom and I have been back. Actually, we went back with our children in 2004, something, 2000. It's so startling to return to a country that you've known in a state of war, and then to see it in a condition of peace. I mean, it's just an amazing experience. I think I was really lucky, actually, because I was there very late in all of this, and we actually did see the end of the fighting. I saw the day at the university in Saigon when all the weapons were piled up, and everybody took off their uniforms and laid down their guns. It's an amazing experience. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't a lot of hardship and struggle, just as there was here after the Revolutionary War. I mean, there's a lot of conflict and division in Vietnam as well, obviously. But 20 years later, 25, how many years later? Lots of years later, it was phenomenal. So many of the bomb craters had been filled in. There were buildings everywhere, whole buildings, not just blown up structures. Most of the country's young. All these young people, right? With no memory of the war. We had more in common with old people there who remembered the war than we did with the young tour guides we were with. We had no memory. They were concerned about freedom of the press and, issues about education. And you're thinking, wait, what happened? So Vietnam for the Vietnamese, they're doing it. They're building their country, and it's exciting. We went back to the center, where years ago we had made arms and legs for kids and women and farmers. And it was so exciting to walk in there and to see a little mango tree that we'd planted, now huge, producing all this fruit. And for me, that was really the metaphor. We went to My Lai. We lived very near My Lai, and that's a place many of us have heard about. There's a museum there that talks about what happened there. But the whole surround is this beautiful village that's been rebuilt, very prosperous, fishing, life going on, living. The rehab center where we worked has been moved to a larger city. Wonderfully, they now aren't just making legs for people who've stepped on mines, but for people who've been in car accidents. I mean, just normal stuff. It sounds weird, but that was really exciting. It was wonderful. It was really healing. It was wonderful to go back and see that. At the same time, there are a lot of ongoing problems. I mean, you dump Agent Orange anywhere and it's going to make long-term environmental challenges. Many other issues, of course, issues with the same issues people here suffer from, with drug abuse, the effects of war, post-traumatic stress disorder. Our peoples are suffering from the same kinds of challenges. So if you ever get a chance to go, it's just gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful, very productive country, just full of young energy. It's great.